A routine overnight passenger flight climbs out of Kuala Lumpur just after midnight. On radar, everything looks normal. Altitude steady, speed stable, a standard international route toward Beijing. 239 people are on board, and for the first part of the journey, nothing suggests this flight will become one of the most studied aviation mysteries in history. Then, somewhere over the South China Sea, something changes. Not suddenly in a way that triggers alarms, not in a way that forces a distress call, but in a way that only becomes visible later when every piece of data is pulled apart and rebuilt. At the time, it simply looked like a routine handoff between air traffic control sectors. The aircraft acknowledges its final contact with Malaysian controllers. A short, standard phrase. Then it enters Vietnamese airspace responsibility. That is the last moment of normal communication. After that, the aircraft stops responding to civilian radar in a clean, continuous way. At first, this does not immediately register as catastrophic. Aircraft sometimes drop off certain radar systems depending on coverage gaps, but within minutes, multiple systems begin failing to align. There is no emergency signal, no mayday call, no transponder distress code, just silence where continuous tracking should exist. At this stage, investigators later describe a critical problem. The aircraft was not just missing from one system, it was missing from multiple independent tracking layers at the same time. Civilian radar loses it first. Then expected communication channels fail to produce updates. And what makes this moment unusual is that nothing about the weather or known conditions explains a total loss of contact. Some data continues to exist in fragments. Military radar later reconstructs something unexpected. Instead of continuing along its planned northeast route toward Beijing, the aircraft appears to make a deviation, a turn that does not match its filed flight plan. At the time, this movement is not understood in real time. Controllers are still assuming normal flight progression, but the aircraft is no longer following the expected corridor. It moves away from established routes, and it does so without any recorded explanation from the cockpit. This is where the investigation begins to shift from routine tracking failure to something far more complex. Because now the question is not just where the aircraft is, it is whether anyone on the ground is still receiving accurate information about what the aircraft is doing at all. Minutes turn into hours. And during that time, satellite communication systems begin to show something subtle, not a continuous signal, not a clear location, but intermittent handshake data, small digital pings between the aircraft and satellite systems that suggest one critical fact. The aircraft is still airborne long after radar contact has been lost. This detail changes everything. It means the disappearance did not happen at the moment of radar loss. It happened somewhere after, but the path remains unclear. Each reconstructed point creates a wider uncertainty zone. The aircraft could have been moving along multiple possible arcs over the ocean. Nothing in the data provides a clean, straight line. Instead, there is only a shrinking but still ambiguous corridor of possible positions. At this stage, search operations have not yet fully formed. Authorities are still trying to confirm basic facts. Was the aircraft hijacked? Was there a mechanical failure that disabled communication systems? Was there deliberate human action in the cockpit that altered the flight path? None of these questions can be answered from available signals, because there is no final transmission, no cockpit voice recording, no final distress sequence, just a growing gap between expected behavior and recorded data. As time passes, the aircraft continues to transmit weak satellite handshakes. These are not location signals in the traditional sense. They are system checks, proof that the aircraft is still powered and communicating in a limited form. From this data, investigators later reconstruct a long arc across open ocean regions, a path that moves far beyond normal commercial flight corridors, eventually turning toward the southern Indian Ocean. But even this reconstruction is not fully direct. It is inferred from signal timing rather than direct tracking, which means every point is an approximation based on limited data intervals. While this is happening, air traffic controllers are still attempting to locate the aircraft using conventional methods. But the aircraft is no longer visible to them. It is effectively operating outside standard surveillance coverage. And at some point during this extended flight, communication ends completely. The satellite handshakes stop. No further signals are received. From that moment forward, the aircraft is no longer detectable in any operational system. What remains is silence. Not an immediate crash signature, not a confirmed impact point, just the absence of data. Search operations begin on a massive scale. Aircraft, naval vessels, and satellite systems scan vast sections of ocean. At first, the search focuses on regions closer to the original flight path, then expands outward as satellite data is analyzed more deeply. Weeks pass with no confirmed wreckage. The absence itself becomes part of the mystery, because large commercial aircraft typically leave detectable debris fields. But here, nothing is immediately found. Only after extended ocean drift patterns are studied do small fragments begin appearing on distant shorelines. Pieces of aircraft material confirmed to match a Boeing 777 structure. These fragments confirm one critical fact. The aircraft did enter the ocean, but they do not confirm where, or how, or what happened inside the cockpit in the final hours. The main wreckage remains missing. The flight recorders, which would normally provide a full reconstruction of events, are never recovered. Without them, investigators are left with indirect data and partial reconstructions. Over time, multiple theories emerge. Some focus on mechanical or electrical failure scenarios that could explain loss of communication. Others focus on human intervention hypotheses based on the unusual flight path deviation. Some suggest complex system interactions that may have affected tracking and communication simultaneously. But none of these explanations are fully supported by complete evidence. Each theory fills part of the gap, but never the entire sequence. And this is what makes the case persistent. Not just that the aircraft was lost, but that the most important phase of the flight remains undocumented in a direct way. There is no confirmed moment where control is clearly understood. No final recorded explanation from inside the aircraft. No verified endpoint captured in real time. Only reconstructed movement based on satellite timing and later debris analysis. Even years after the disappearance, the core gap remains unchanged. A fully loaded passenger aircraft, hundreds of lives, multiple tracking systems designed to prevent exactly this kind of uncertainty, and yet a final stretch of time that still cannot be fully reconstructed. What is known is limited. The flight departed normally. It deviated from its expected route. It traveled into remote ocean regions, and it ended somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. What is not known is the sequence that caused that deviation, or the exact final moments before communication ended. And so the case remains defined not by what was found, but by what was never fully seen. A modern aircraft, tracked, communicating, then gradually slipping beyond every system designed to keep it visible, until only fragments of its journey could be recovered. And a central question that still has no definitive answer: where did MH370 go in and the moments when it stopped being visible to the world.